marathon continues. Now, obviously, Saturday is the podcast, so there won't be a video on either channel tomorrow. I'll be on Ucast. Search up the Domcast if you hadn't heard of it. So yeah, I technically can't continue the streak through Saturdays, but we are continuing today, and somebody had a really good idea. So if you watch the alternate champions video, basically where we just looked through every NBA Finals this decade and looked at the alternate matchups and the most hypothetical ones that didn't even get close to happening, somebody recommended we do that for MVPs, and I like it. Let's look at the MVP voting for every year, and let's look at who came in second, but then let's look a little bit down the list as well. So for the second place guy, it'll be looking at what an MVP would have done for his career, yada yada. But this is really fun because a lot of you guys don't know that any of these people had MVP votes. Once you get past like fourth place, you have no clue that these guys really had MVP consideration, and that's really interesting and gives you some context of these years. So without further ado, starting with the year 2010, LeBron James easily walked away with this. He averaged 30 points a game, 9 assists, 2 steals, a block, shot 50% from the field, 7 rebounds, and the Cavaliers won like 60 or 61 games. Best team in the NBA. So just put it this way, the max amount of points that you can get in voting is 1,230. LeBron James had 1,205. He had 116 first place votes. The only other people that got first place votes that year were Kevin Durant, who came in second, and Dwight Howard, who came in fourth. So that's interesting. In the year 2010, this was LeBron's repeat MVP year, and there was literally no chance of really anyone else getting it. Kobe Bryant dealing with injuries, getting a little bit older. He actually placed third that year. But I find it interesting, the year 2010, you don't really think of 21-year-old Kevin Durant coming second in the MVP race, and he did. He wasn't anywhere close. There was no way in hell it was happening. But I always find the young Thunder and the young KD really interesting because it seems like people think they were just bad up and they just magically appeared in 2012. As you see in 2010, that was the year the Thunder they were making people think they could upset Kobe Bryant and the Lakers in the playoffs. So yeah, KD at 21 years old, second in the MVP race. Not even close to enough votes for first, but he did average 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists that year, shot 47% from the field, and OKC was an A seed. So in the year before, I'm pretty sure they weren't even in the playoffs. KD was already on a lot of radars. And your fun fact for the year 2010, there was a 4-way tie for 12th place in this MVP race, and it was between Chauncey Billups, Chris Bosh, Steven Jackson, and Joe Johnson. Yes, Steven Jackson once had MVP votes. In the year 2011, Derrick Rose wins the MVP, touting numbers of 25 points, 8 assists, a steal, and 4 rebounds. His efficiency is not that great, so that's why people always say, oh, this was a trash MVP year. Then there's those of us that actually watched that year and saw the Bulls were very depleted. He had no superstars next to him, yet he still led them to the best record in the Eastern Conference, and I am pretty sure maybe even the NBA. I'm not sure if the Spurs had a better record that year. Anyways, yeah, he won the MVP in a blowout. He had 113 first place votes. The next highest number after that was 4 for LeBron James, and LeBron came in third place that year. Your second place contender this year was Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had 3 first place votes, but he had more points, so that means he made up the votes in other places. Dwight that year, 23 points, 14 rebounds, 2.5 blocks a game, 60% from the field. Pretty sure he was Defensive Player of the Year. Quite simply put, he was a monster. And yeah, that year the Magic felt the need to trade everybody around him, even though they had made the conference finals the year before. The roster that they got in return was much weaker. It was that year with like Gilbert Arenas, and I don't know, it was just really fucking weird. They were not legitimate contenders anymore. However, if they were, D12 could have been an MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. He's already a Hall of Famer when you look at it, but adding an MVP that year would have made him surefire Hall of Famer. No one would even be able to discuss it, even if they didn't like him, which is the case now. And speaking of dislike, of course, that was the conversation with LeBron James that year. People said he was wearing the black hat because he went to Miami, and the media was just not going to vote for him. They felt that his numbers of 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and shooting 51%, they were like, that's more than good enough for MVP. Problem with that is he also had Dwayne Wade on the team that year, who was 7th in MVP voting. 26 points a game for Wade, 6.5 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 50% from the field, 2 steals a game. So yeah, having 2 MVP caliber players on the same team when D Rose had none, I think that definitely factored into the voting there. And final fun fact here, Rajon Rondo and Blake Griffin, they were in a 2-way tie for 10th place in this MVP voting. Relative to the other years that we've done so far, 2012 was actually kind of interesting. So LeBron wins your MVP. He's on a revenge tour that year, ridiculous numbers, 27, 8 and 6, 2 steals, 53% from the field, shooting threes better at 36%. He gets 85 first place votes. Second place again that year is Kevin Durant, and he had 24 first place votes. So that's the first time we've seen where anybody had any kind of like marginal consideration outside of the first place vote. He ended up with 889 points total. LeBron James had 1,074. So there was some kind of conversation there. And that was the second time in the span of a few years that KD came second place to LeBron. So that triggered his speech a couple of years later about how he was tired of always being second. So yeah, if LeBron James did not exist, or if he wasn't in the league, or if he wasn't injured, KD could have possibly had around 2 MVPs by the age of 23. Third place that year was actually Chris Paul. He won 6 first place votes, and that was his first year with the Los Angeles Clippers, so that was the first time he really even had a team since like the 08 year. That was one of the only times that he had a team where he could actually compete with. And then Kobe Bryant and Tony Parker came in 4th and 5th place respectively. Kobe was top 5 in a lot of these, but I haven't really been mentioning it because Kobe's goal was always the championship, so especially with him getting older, he was not going to place above these guys. And your fun fact for 2012, for the people that think Kevin Love was never actually that good, he was 6th in MVP voting. Kevin Love was averaging 26 points, 13 rebounds, and he had absolutely no chance at winning. He got no first place votes, but he did rank nonetheless. Ah yes, the infamous 2013. LeBron James repeats, and on a team that won 66 games, he averages 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, shoots 56% from the field, and 40% from 3. Will always be one of the greatest seasons of all time. Easily should have been unanimous, but because somebody felt Carmelo Anthony deserved a first place vote, because they thought the New York Knicks would not have made the playoffs without him, whereas the Heat would have made it without him, Carmelo Anthony got 1 first place vote. He was the only other person to get a first place vote in 2013. Now, the funny part about this, he did not come in second place. Kevin Durant came in second place. He had more total points won. Carmelo came in 3rd. But yes, he was the only other player on this list with a first place vote. LeBron won 1,207 points out of a total available of 1,210 that season. Kevin Durant again second, so that is the 3rd time he's come second to LeBron James. So KD by this point has put in enough work to possibly be a 3-time MVP in a universe where LeBron James doesn't exist, or he's not playing on a great team or something like that. That's 3 second place votes by the age of 24. Some really fun facts in 2013. Tim Duncan placed 7th. Steph Curry actually was getting votes by this point. He was 11th. And then there is a 5-way tie for 12th place. Are you ready for this? It's a 36-year-old Kevin Garnett, Mark Gasol, Ty Lawson, David Lee, and Joakim Noah. Yes, they were technically in the MVP race of 2013. They ranked. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Especially in 2013, I have no clue what Kevin Garnett was doing there. The year is 2014, and finally, at the age of 25, Kevin Durant has broken through. Westbrook is out part of that year with knee surgery, so Kevin Durant has to pick up much of the load. He responds. He averaged 32 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, shot 50% and then 39% from 3. So those numbers are very telling because without another superstar to draw attention from him on the floor, if you go back and watch tape of 2014, Kevin Durant, they were trying to smother him. They were throwing multiple defenders at him, making him take some of the toughest shots of this decade, and he still managed to go 50% from the field. He was stone cold that year, absolutely deserved MVP, got 119 first place votes. The only other first place votes that season went to LeBron James, so this time it was LeBron coming second to KD. LeBron got 6 first place votes. Again, KD 119. LeBron was up to his usual tricks with his numbers. His 3-point shooting fell down a little bit. It would have been very hard for him to match 2013. But yeah, flat out in 14, KD just deserved it. Check out 3rd and 4th place that year. 3rd and 4th place in 2014 was Blake Griffin and Joakim Noah. Yes, Noah actually made some noise. He had 322 points that year in the MVP race. For him, that's kind of significant. You don't really think of Noah as an MVP type player, but with D-Rose out, even once you got to the playoffs, he was doing a lot. For him, 13 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and then the defense he was playing as well, 2 blocks a game, a steal, and he played more defense than those numbers suggest because those are the only defensive, that's really the only main stats that you have for defense. Yeah, Noah was very active that year. But anyways, if Westbrook had not gone out with injury that year, it is entirely possible that we would have seen LeBron James three-peat with MVPs. He could have gotten 12, 13, and 14. Imagine the talks around LeBron today if he had an extra MVP to his name because he hasn't won since 2013. Very, very fun fact, Al Jefferson was 8th in MVP voting this year. And also, Goran Dragic received points. For some reason, this one goes all the way down to a 17th rank. Goran Dragic was 16th. Mike Conley was behind him. Yeah, Goran Dragic received 3 points, playing for Phoenix. That's fun. 2015, the Warriors take a giant step up. Steph Curry's numbers don't look that much different from previous years, and by the way, I haven't been mentioning, Curry has actually ranked on a lot of these, but he was never top 5, so to see him go from like that 8th, 7th range, or 9th or wherever he was, to just go straight up to number 1 this year, that's pretty interesting. And again, his numbers were not that different, so he averaged 24 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, shot 49% from the field and 44% from 3, so he was blazing from behind the line as is usual, for him anyways. He goes on to get 100 first place votes. That year, your runner-up was James Harden, and this was the start of people saying James Harden got snubbed. Harden received 25 first place votes in the year 2015. And actually, this is the closest and most contested run we've had so far, so out of a total of 1,300 points, Steph Curry won 1,198, James Harden won 936, so he was not that far off. Now, of course, he was nowhere close in first place votes, but yeah, when you just look at the total points, this is the closest it's been in years. People argue that Houston dealt with a lot of injuries that year, and James Harden put up 27 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, but he was a lot less efficient, again because he didn't have as much help really. Well, he just wasn't efficient as Curry in the first place, but it would make sense with the teams that they had as well. He shot 44% from the field and 37% from 3. But yeah, that one is always contested. People feel like James Harden's first MVP should have been in the year 2015 and not 2018. LeBron got 5 first place votes. And that was a year that Russell Westbrook actually had to play without KD, so his numbers were crazy and he ranked 4th. Your fun fact for that year is that Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, and Klay Thompson were in a 3-way tie for 10th place in that year's MVP voting. So yeah, Klay Thompson actually had a point. Interesting. The year 2016, Steph Curry says, okay, you don't really take me seriously, that is fine. 30 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 50% from the field, and 45% from 3. And the thing that doesn't show up in the numbers here is the type of shots he was taking. So in 2015, they were kind of like regular threes for the most part. And in 2016, he introduced like the alien shots, the stuff that a coach would just have never let you take before Steph Curry started it. Even now, I'm not sure that the coaches out here letting people take those straight up like logo shots. Yeah, visually one of the most impressive seasons ever, along with statistically. Golden State breaks all types of records. He breaks all types of records. He's unanimous. 131 first place votes. He's the most important cog in a team that goes 73-9. Nobody could even make an argument that he was not unanimous that year, and it's funny because people try to. And mostly they tried to say maybe LeBron should have had it that year, especially after what ends up happening. And the funny part about that is he doesn't even end up in 2nd place. It's Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard ends up in 2nd place for 2016 MVP. He totaled 634 points out of a total of 1,310. So yeah, there was no chance anybody was getting MVP that year over Steph Curry, but here's Kawhi, who still does not have an MVP today. And I guess if Curry didn't exist, maybe he would have had one. Yeah, I don't think Kawhi's ever actually gonna have an MVP, but it would do a lot for his career if he did. Fun fact of 2016 is that Draymond Green actually did receive MVP votes. He got 50 points. He was 7th place that year, and Kyle Lowry did as well. He had 6 points, and he was in last. He was in 10th place. 2017 arrives, allegedly, and Kevin Durant joins the Golden State Warriors. That takes Steph Curry out of MVP voting because 2 players on a team that are that good, they pretty much cannibalize each other. But also that allows Russell Westbrook to not just duplicate, but improve on what he did in 2015, and he walks away with the MVP. He becomes the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double, and he does it with 32 points, 11 rebounds, 10.5 assists, 2 steals, only shoots 42% from the field that year and 34% from 3. He gets 69 first-place votes. But this one is hotly contested, so in 2nd place, once again, you have James Harden. James Harden only gets 22 first place votes, however, look at the points won. Russell Westbrook won 888 points, James Harden won 753, so that is actually the closest race we've had so far. James Harden was also very close to a triple-double with 29 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 steals, and more efficient than Westbrook, so 44% from the field and 34% from 3, that's actually the same 3-point percentage. And that was a hotly contested year. People felt like because Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double and then hit that buzzer beater against Denver to end the season, they felt like it was kind of that just closed the book on it. But they felt like Harden again was snubbed and should have had more consideration. I think on top of the triple-double and what happened there in Denver at the end was the fact that Russell Westbrook came into that season on an OKC team that wasn't slated to make the playoffs. Once Kevin Durant left, you were left with a bunch of players who really didn't even fit Russell Westbrook's game. You didn't really have a lot of shooters there. You didn't have a lot of guys for him to drive and kick to, and yet they still made the playoffs and he still did what he did. And those triple doubles were not empty. They won most of the time that he had a triple double. That's a stat that still lives for his that lived through most of his time in OKC. Anyways, yes, James Harden came extremely close. After those two, it fell off quite a bit. You had Kawhi and LeBron there with no real chance of winning it, even though they were in the race up until kind of, as you got towards the end, they really fell behind Harden and Westbrook. Fun fact for here, Isaiah Thomas actually ranked 5th. He ranked above Steph Curry in 2017 for MVP voting. This is the first time we saw Giannis in MVP voting. He tied for 7th along with John Wall. And DeMar DeRozan was 10th. He got an MVP vote. So 2 years straight we had a Toronto guy get MVP votes. But yes, by this point, James Harden has already had 2 races that people feel like he should have won. So they feel like he should have 2 extra MVPs up to this point. 2 extra MVPs on top of the one he wins in 2018. Yes, Harden finally gets it. They have an amazing season. They have one of the most efficient offenses ever. I believe they win something like 67 games, or it's definitely in the 60s. They have first seed over the Golden State Warriors. And Harden averages 30 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 steals, 44% from the field, and 36% from 3. He wins 86 first place votes. And this one was, again, it was pretty decently contested. Guess who was in second? LeBron James. Yes, this is the closest LeBron comes to an MVP since his 2014 year, actually. And people feel like LeBron should have won it because of all the turmoil that Cleveland was in. They only won 50 games that year, so that's part of the reason that they didn't, or that he didn't. They turned over the roster. They traded for guys that made the roster look like it was back in 07. It's basically just a bunch of shooters around him, but guys whose name didn't really carry a whole lot of weight. Anyways, LeBron ends up with 15 first place votes, and it was decently contested. James Harden wins 965 points. LeBron James wins 738, so not the closest race, but it was definitely consideration given to LeBron. However, at 27 points a game, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, and 54% from the field, yeah, he definitely had MVP numbers, but with what Harden was able to do with the offense in Houston and where Houston was able to go, I guess the feeling was that LeBron hadn't done anything special enough for eye-popping enough compared to things he had done in the past to overshadow James Harden. Because at that point, people felt like you might be giving LeBron James an MVP simply because his team is worse than Harden's. When you look at the Cavaliers being 4th in the Eastern Conference, and then you look at the Rockets being 1st in the West, which is definitely the tougher conference at that point, it really feels like the only reason you would have given LeBron James first place votes, it would have been kind of penalizing Harden for having a decent team. And that is what people felt like happened to Harden in 2017 when he was in the race with Westbrook. However, the fact that it's 2 different things. The fact that the Thunder were not even slated to be in the playoffs and then he pulled out a triple-double to get them there, I think that was slightly more eye-popping. Anyways, with how MVP is voted on 9 times out of 10, I felt like that was really fake outrage in 2018. It was kind of obvious Harden was getting it. Nobody else even got first place votes outside of LeBron James. That year, your fun fact, Oladipo, actually, after he was traded from OKC, he plays for Indiana and ranks 13th in MVP voting, which is the last slot there. But yeah, he did show up, but nothing too out of the ordinary there. And then your final MVP of the 2010s goes to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis pulls out a year where the Bucks win like 60 games. He averages 28 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, shoots 57% from the field, which was particularly interesting because it was a thing where people knew where he was going all season. He's not a good 3-point shooter, yet he was still able to get exactly where he wanted a majority of the time. Of course, until we got to the playoffs and Toronto built that wall. But yeah, he was putting up ridiculous numbers, much like he is this year. He wins 78 first place votes, 941 points overall. James Harden, again, comes second. That is his 3rd second place finish, I'm pretty sure, of this decade. He wins 23 first place votes and wins 776 points overall. Harden averages 36 points a game, 36. 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 44% from the field, 36% from 3. Thing is, Houston has a down year compared to what they had the year before. They only win 53 games. They had a very rough start. They were 4th in the Western Conference. So there was a lot of saltiness over this one just recently, really. There's been things where James Harden clearly feels like he deserved it. And people look at Giannis and say, well, look at the record that the Bucks had. Look at the fact that Giannis did not really have another All-NBA name next to him. And I think Giannis won it last year for the same reason he's probably going to win it this year. First of all, last year, the Eastern Conference and the top of it was actually pretty contested. The Celtics were underperforming, but they still had the talent. You had the Sixers, and you had the Raptors with Kawhi. So that was it was a very top heavy conference, but it wasn't even just a conference. For much of the season, they looked like the best team in the NBA, and we already know most of the time, again, 9 times out of 10, MVP, if there is a best player on the best team, a lot of the times that's where the MVP is gonna go, and Giannis was doing some pretty historical shit. Now, so was James Harden, but again, okay, if you have 2 historical performances, and one of them is on a team that has 60 plus wins, the MVP is going to them. That's just the way it is. That's the reason I call it fake outrage, because we already know how this voting happens. We know how it goes. And so this year is much of the same thing. It looks like the Bucks are headed for another 60-win season. Giannis has actually gotten a little bit better, and he does not have an all-NBA name next to him. So when you look at everybody else who does this year, especially this is the year of the duo, he actually has an advantage to repeat. He doesn't have Anthony Davis on his team. He doesn't have Russell Westbrook, who's not even having a great season. But again, I'm talking about all-NBA names. I think there's a great chance Giannis is going to repeat at this rate. But yeah, I was calling out the fake outrage last year. I made a Barbershop talk about it because people started making an MVP campaign for Paul George. It was called MVPG, and he actually ranked 3rd. He didn't get any first place votes because he got hurt towards the end of the year, but he did get the points to place 3rd. But in any case, especially when you considered Giannis's defense, it was very clearly going to him. Your fun fact for 2019, Rudy Gobert ranked 11th. He was tied with LeBron James for MVP voting. That's how far LeBron had fallen because of injuries, of course. But yeah, that was the type of season that he and the Lakers had last year. However, yes, according to certain people, James Harden currently has 4 MVPs. And he's definitely had multiple MVP. He's had about that many MVP worthy seasons. Nobody's really arguing that. So if it makes y'all feel better. Anyways, yes, those are the alternative MVPs for the 2010s. Those are how some of the votings broke down. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.